May 8th, 2012, and I'm going to call the meeting of the Board of Commissioners of Clackamas Water to order. First of all, will you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Adora, will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Colwell? Present. Commissioner Sterling?
Here.
And Commissioner Kemp?
Here.
And
At this point, Commissioners Kehoe and Cardwell are not yet here. So, the first item is the management report, Lee. That's yours.
That's under second item. And
Here comes Tammy.
so the first activity item is
Just
the
starting on the management report.
is that there was an item at the last board meeting where the board had provided direction to me to communicate with my peers, CRWP, regarding the concern of having Tigard and Lake Oswego become members of the CRWP board organization, and that information was shared with the CRWP board, and so the item has been deferred on the agenda until a later date, and so there was not a date certain picked, but it's no longer an item that we're discussing at this point. The second item that we have is in March of this year, we had intended for Ms. Cochran to come and give a brief presentation to the board on the operations manual and policies that she has been working on. And under Exhibit 6 that you have, we sent out a table of contents indicating what the operations manual consisted of, and there is a summary sheet that's attached to that document, because I guess there was some concern about the lack of volume in the document. And as you can see on page 1 of that pie chart, that there has been a total of 72 policies developed to date, and a total of 663 pages. The policy manual, operations policy manual, includes administration, accounting, personnel, safety, and health. There will be an IT component as well as a procurement and contracting component that is being developed. As you can see from the manual that's sitting in front of me, this is volume 1 of what will ultimately be a full volume manual, where volumes 2, 3, and 4 are still in draft form, and they will be completed shortly. So I think there was, as I indicated, there was some concern about the brevity of the work product, but as you can see, it's pretty extensive. It was developed by Ms. Cochran with input from the appropriate management staff, as well as reviewed by management staff, The personnel or human resources portion is now being reviewed by legal counsel to make sure that it is, meets all requirements of the law. So as I think the board is aware that the policies that we have in place, and many of those have not been changed since 1999 through the year, I think, 2002. And so, as you might imagine, they're quite out of date. And so the intent here is to bring those current. Yes.
What has been the cost of this so far?
That's the one, I believe it's about, what, $57,000, is that right? That's the contract that Ms. Cochran was working with.
I can answer your question exactly in just one second, Barbara.
Okay. The next
I'm sorry,
item,
and I have questions about this too.
so the next item that we have is the Southport request for rate discussion.
So we have questions on.
Yeah, we're not
six.
Holloway has,
The board president told me to proceed, that's what I'm doing.
yeah, and then she just, I thought she was looking for her numbers.
I've got them right here, and I have questions as well. Barbara, according to the notations in the accounts payable that were given, so far in this fiscal year, Ms. Cochran has been paid $51,600, and overall, in connection with this operations manual, she's been paid $102,400. And then, of course, she was paid roughly $37,200 for the ORS 190 Sunrise Water Authority financial analysis. Now, I have a question for Ms. Bright in connection with this. Yeah? Would come up?
Let me hear the question first if I don't have an answer for it.
Well, this document says that, let me find it here. It says policy authority prepared for Carol Bright, chief financial officer, so I assume that was the case. Okay, then I have some questions for you, please. Okay. My first question is, under what authority did you authorize the payment of this $102,400 for an operations manual?
We have a contract with Ms. Cochran to produce this, and it's based on board direction to Mr. Moore, the general manager, to update the policies for the district.
That is not my question.
I did not sign the contract.
Okay. Well, the
notation of myself as the policy authority is utilized as a mechanism to ensure that we don't get 10 or 15 years down the road and have these wonderful policies that were created in 2012 and never looked at again. So we're utilizing that as a mechanism to have recurring review of the policies, most of which will be on an annual basis. Some may be every 2 years, and we will review those policies and make notations, make any changes so that we can ensure that we keep them up to date based on legal changes and district goal changes, anything else that might change the nature of the policy. So every year, we will review them, and they've got different review dates within the year, so we're not doing this huge project all over again. And all of the reviews, the annual reviews, will be entirely in-house. We won't be calling in a consultant to recreate these policies 10 years from now, because all of our policies are over 10 years old. We'll be looking at them every year, ensuring that they still maintain compliance with any changes in legal status and with changes in the district operations.
The reason I was asking you about what your authority was to do that is that I don't see any project plan for it. Back in, on December the 8th, 2011, under Board Resolution 07-2012, board policy was modified as follows. Preparation and modification to personnel policies. The general manager shall prepare and modify personnel and employment policies in compliance with Oregon and federal law and general CRW board policy applicable to personnel. The general manager shall provide copies of any personnel manual or policy and modifications to such manual or policies at such time as they are implemented by the general manager. Now, I went to the older personnel policy manual, and I only have here the table of contents. As you know, it's quite a large document. And I really, with certain limited exceptions, I cannot sync that document up with this very lengthy table of contents that was originally distributed out to us in January, and all of these materials
I'm sorry, what does this have to do
that are
with
here.
this?
Well, it has everything to do with this issue.
I know, but what does this have to do with this?
Well, the document we got said that she's responsible for it. If she is unable to answer the questions, then
Well, she just said that she wasn't, so.
somebody else will have to answer
Okay,
them.
do you have any further questions for Ms. Bright?
So, Ms. Bright, you did not authorize this $102,400, is that correct?
I don't have the authority to authorize contracts. That's under the authority of the general manager, and contracts in excess of $50,000 in a fiscal year are brought before the board.
Well, I would differ with you. It isn't 50,000 in a fiscal year. It's 50,000 period. Per his contract. Yes, that's correct. So are you recommending that I take these questions to the general manager instead of you?
I don't have any recommendations for you at this time. I guess I'm not, I don't understand the
Okay,
nature
well,
of the question.
The issue's very uncomplicated.
Okay, where are you
This is-
asking her to tell you what to do? Do you know what you want to do or no?
Commissioner Keough, I assure you I'm quite capable of
Okay,
asking my
well,
own
because
questions.
I understand that, but I think it's kind of unfair to ask an employee to tell you what it is you should be doing.
Commissioner Keough, will you just back out for a minute, please? So,
I agree with Commissioner Kehoe.
well,
Commissioner Sterling, do you have a question?
wait, I still have the floor. This document here talks about 663 pages, 72 policies developed to date. The ones I have at least identified Ms. Bright. If the correct person to address the issue to is Mr. Moore, I'll be happy to do that. And as far as I can see, there's no project plan that supported this. There is no authorization under the resolution that supports this. This document, based on the various pieces that I've received, covers governance and all kinds of things. Plus, at this point, we've received only, how many pages was it?
I'm going to cut you off
no,
right
no,
there, and I'm going to allow
no.
Commissioner Sterling. You've had the floor long enough.
I'm
Pat.
asking Mr.
Commissioner-
Moore,
okay, you're gonna
Commissioner
have to-
Kehoe, you have to let me finish asking
No,
my
you are
question.
going to have to wait
On
because you're
what-
monopolizing the time.
On
Commissioner
what
Sterling,
authority,
I'm going to move
Mr.
on.
Moore, did you authorize this work?
The number one goal in my management plan is to bring all of CRW's operating policies current, that had been the number one goal for the last 2 years. It's under that authority that we have been revising operational policies for CRW.
Is it your opinion, in light of Resolution 072012, that you are authorized to modify board policy, which is what this stuff purports to do?
Is that a statement or a question? Which one?
It's a question.
Which part is the question?
Is it your view that you have the authority to modify all the stuff that's referenced in these documents?
I think that's a question that you need to present to the board.
No, it's a question I'm presenting to Mr. Moore.
And he does not have to answer that. And that's a question that I think you need to bring to the board if you have a concern about it. If
I
you
am
feel-
addressing it
no,
to the
I
person who's
understand.
undertaking the
I
action,
understand,
Commissioner
Pat,
Kehoe.
and he does not have to answer that. So if you have a concern.
I don't think that's
If
you have no authority over whether he has to answer or
Oh,
not.
I run this
Tammy.
meeting, Pat.
You run the meeting, you
That's
do not
right.
run the board.
And I'm letting you know that
And
that
you
is
do
a
not-
question that is most appropriate for you to address to the board.
You are not a dictator.
I understand that.
You're
Okay,
only
Commissioner
board president.
Sterling, do you have a question?
I'd like to at this time put forth in front of the board a motion to take and table the entire issue in regards to this operations manual. I bring it forward because of the tens of thousands of dollars that apparently continue to be spent on this document. I think that this should remain on the table until the budget is complete and the rate study
What is your motion?
that this operations
Please
manual.
make the motion, and then we can go into discussion.
That's correct.
My motion is that this operations manual policy procedure be tabled, including the contract from which Jody Cochran is assigned to do this work, until after the budget is completed and the rate study that is also to be completed is done. And once those two, the rate study and the budget are completed, then this should be brought forth before the board at the next following regular meeting. So we have, Adora, the first, the budget is to be completed. And then the rate study is also to be completed. And once those two are done, at the following month, the regular meeting, this should be brought back and forth, back in front of the board.
Is there a
in
second?
regards to it.
Second, for the purpose of discussion.
I have a question for you, Mr. Moore.
Okay.
Before we have the contract with Jody Cochran to update the CRW policy manual, when was the last time it was updated?
2002.
2002?
Now, I'd like to remind the board that when this issue came before the board before, there was a question as to whether or not we were talking about CRW board policy versus operations policy. And there was plenty of discussion at that point. And the board separated board policy from operations policy and essentially said that operations policy was in the sole purview of the general manager. The manual that's in front of you is not here for approval. What it is, it's an informational item because the board was made to believe that the manual was only 40 pages long. The board has also been made to believe that this manual was put together as a precursor to the 190 agreement. As you can see from this document, it's anything but that, and it's more extensive than what's been represented to the board. The other thing that Commissioner Holloway is concerned about is that there's no project plan. If she were to open the materials that I sent out to the board, The document that says table of contents is laid out in a project plan format. There is a listing of what the particular items are. There is a current date section and a schedule revision section. That is what we're tracking here. I can't verify or confirm the $100,000 number that Commissioner Holloway has referenced here. Where that number comes from, I have no way of vetting it as it's been presented here. And it's over more than a 1-year period of time.
I do have a question for you in regards to the, I guess, the approximate time. Now, I guess my question is that we have the operations manual and that there's a timetable for revisions. Is the operations manual finalized and now we're at the portion where we're just doing revisions?
So as I indicated, I'm sorry.
No,
As
go
I
on, because I'm
indicated,
kind of figure out an estimate of time of when it's going to be completed.
that this is
If
a
there's gonna be any extra cost.
This is a 4-volume set. And when I brought this volume here, it's really the first volume. I also indicated when I presented this tonight that the human resources or personnel part of the manual is out for legal review. Once it is gone to that review, then it will be brought before the board for the board to look at it. It's in its final draft form, but subject to legal review. There is also an information technology section. There is a contract review board section that General Counsel Phillips, myself, and staff are going through, which would be a volume 3. So what this is a work in process. So I guess, and then my last concern is, because the board has agreed that this is part of my general manager responsibility, it's one of the goals that the board is holding me accountable for. Does this motion put it in a situation that I'm no longer responsible for complying with that? Because essentially what's happened is that you will be changing my performance review and the goals that are associated thereto.
Commissioner Holloway?
As to your question, Mr. Moore, as to where the 102,400 came from, that comes from line listings in the accounts payable monthly reports that the board receives. If Ms. Bright cares to make it more specific, that's fine. I'll be happy to have that information. Second, to date, what at least I, as a board member, have received totals 54 pages. Now, you're sitting there with a very large volume, you say is volume 1 of 4. Sometime back, Ms. Bright did promise to give the board a full copy of whatever work, albeit in draft form, that Ms. Cochran had produced. I have not received that. Perhaps other board members have. Third, and so at this point, I think, I don't know, we're looking at about $1,800 a page so far as what the board, or at least I as a board member, have received. What is probably most important about all of this is that the board resolution under which the board abdicated its personnel policy responsibility to the general manager is only related to personnel policies. And it further states that that none of those policies can go into effect until such time as you present them to the board. So my question to you is, number one, what authority do you believe you have beyond this resolution?
He just told you, okay, so can we move on? And he said that there in
Okay,
the
so
second volume, which
so-
is the human resources portion.
Okay, so it's Mr. Moore's opinion that he has the right to modify things up to and including local contract review board rules, which are purely within the purview of the board policy, which is purely within the purview of the board, and that he is authorized to exceed $50,000 this year alone on this activity.
Commissioner Holloway, you're walking all over 3 or 4 different policies. First of all, under board policy, the general manager certainly has authority to present to the board, even board policies that need to be changed. That is a board policy. Secondly, the policy that you're holding in your hand, what we have done is 100% in point with that policy as it relates to human resources policies. What I just told you is that those policies are out for review by an attorney, and when we're ready to implement them, we will bring them back to the board for the board to review. The third item is that the board has had plenty of discussion about whether or not we were going to have operational policies and board policies, and the board has directed myself and staff to separate out operational policies. And so that's exactly what we've done. And with respect to cost, Ms. Brink has told you on numerous occasions that you cannot determine the amount of dollars spent on a contract from the accounts payable log alone. Okay?
Well, if there are more
Will you let me
dollars.
finish, please? I'll let you finish. Okay, and the second item was, the fourth item was that we have long had it as a practice since I've been here, that the contracts are for, the dollar amount of the contracts are within the year in which the contract is initiated. In this particular case, I believe Mrs. Cochran's contract was on the unanimous consent agenda in July. Any contract that's up to that amount of money is placed on the agenda for that amount of money. I believe that's correct.
I don't have that
Yeah,
listed
we
in
don't
front
have
of
it,
me.
but I
so-
believe that's how we've done it as a matter of course. So,
Commissioner Cardwell, Commissioner Kemper, do you have anything to add to the discussion? No? Okay. I'm just wondering if, Commissioner Sterling?
Dora, could I have you read back what you have there as far as the motion is concerned?
You do?
Please.
Okay, I'll wait for you.
Commissioner Sterling moved to table the operations manual of policies and the Jody Cochran contract until the budget and rate study are complete. Once those are complete, bring forth operational policies back at the next regular meeting.
Thank you. That is purely a financial issue. We have a very serious budget that we're trying to look at, and we have already put forth the issue of getting a rate study done so as to figure out where we are and where we're going, and to continue to spend tens of thousands of dollars during a period of time when our folks, I'm glad to see our folks are coming back, they need to have protective clothing for during the winter time. How many sets of protective clothing can we buy for tens of thousands of dollars? Instead of continuing on, here we are, we've got more attorneys, more dollars, more review. Let's get things in order first. Let's see where we are at with our budget and where our rate study is
Point
at.
of order. You're supposed to be addressing the board, not preaching.
Commissioner Kemper, do you have a comment to make?
Yeah, I brought with me my proposed manager goals for last year. And the fourth item on there out of 10 was continue exploring, or excuse me, the fifth item out of 10 was continue development of operational policies and procedures. You were aware of this, weren't you? This was for last year, and it's on to this year's too. And this is not something that you just plain stop midstream without really losing a lot of impetus. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, Dora, can you call the roll, please?
I don't believe discussion's complete, Commissioner.
Do you have anything new to add?
I do. I believe, contrary to Mr. Moore's opinion, that his contracting limit by his contract and the modification,
All right, you already
which
brought,
was
you
done.
already brought that up. Can you call the vote, please?
Commissioner Cardwell?
No.
Commissioner Holloway?
Yes.
Commissioner Kemper?
No,
Commissioner Sterling?
Yes.
And Commissioner Kehoe?
No?
I have a question for Mr.
Motion
Moore.
carries 3-2.
Okay, no, it's over.
Or fails, excuse
It's
me.
over,
It's
Pat.
no.
No, it's over. Motion's,
Mr.
no,
Moore,
motion's been made.
is-
It is over, Pat. We're moving on.
Mr. Moore, is it your opinion
Stop bullying him. I
that
told
I'm
you
not bullying him, you are
that
bullying
this
me?
is over, Pat. The policy discussion is over. We're moving on.
Is it Mr. Moore's opinion that all he has to do is
Pat,
hand
quit
us?
acting
all
out
these
of
volumes.
control.
No, I'm not out of
No,
control.
you are. You are,
This
Pat.
project is out of control.
Okay,
Mr.
leave it,
Moore.
and the discussion's over at this time.
All right, it's on the record.
The next item is the South Fork rate discussion. This is an informational item that advising the board that I have met with the South Fork general manager, and we have begun discussions over the rates as set forth in the consent decree that we have with the court. There's a methodology that has been set forth in that consent decree, and that is the approach that we are following. And we have our respective rate consultants looking at that methodology and making recommendations to each of us, at which time we will sit down and work out an agreement with the end product coming back to the CRW board and the South Fork board for approval.
and this is essentially what the judge ordered you to do, is to follow this procedure
Yes.
earlier, right?
The procedure is set forth in the decree.
Thank you.
I have a question for you. Is this the same rate consultants we used for the rate committee?
Yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Keough?
Commissioner Howell?
Yeah, Mr. Moore, has a new contract been drawn with FCS for this?
And what we did is, the work that they're doing under this is under appeal.
I beg your pardon?
It's under a purchase order.
A purchase order is not a contract?
Yes, it is.
All right. So what is the scope of this purchase order? This board has not been aware until just now that you have further contracted with them to do additional work.
Well, that's why it's on the agenda for today to talk about.
All right. So is it a contract? What defines the scope of work?
What defined the scope of work is that I sat down with the consultants from FCS. I asked them to look at the consent decree and to provide us with a range that they thought was appropriate for rates under the methodology that's set forth in the agreement.
And our contract agreement with South Fork, unfortunately, since it's not been provided to us, I'm stuck working from memory. That had a finite life, or had some established time periods. What are those?
The court decree essentially
Well, no, I'm
said-
talking about this the agreement that we signed.
that's null and void.
I beg your pardon?
It's
It's
null and
null and
void
void.
by what happened during litigation.
No, wait. Post-litigation, CRW and South Fork Water Board entered into an agreement that was signed both sides. Are you telling me that that has somehow been voided?
That is not the question you asked me. You asked me about the contract. What we have is a court order that both parties have entered into. And that's what we're working for.
Mr. Moore, we have a contract with South Fork Water Board that has certain
We
terms.
do not.
Or we do not.
We do not.
So you are telling me
We have a settlement.
that the contract that this board authorized be signed with South Fork Water Board is not a contract with South Fork Water Board?
It is a court order. It's a settlement agreement.
You were there for the
Uh,
discussions, Pat. I don't know why you
well,
are the only one who
I-
can't seem to remember.
Well, first of all, Commissioner, Mr. Moore brings an issue to us with no documentation, so I'm working
No,
from
he
memory.
did. After the settlement
No,
agreement, he
his
brought it to the
documentation
board.
is this.
It's
You
not
don't
in
have a
here,
copy of
but
the
he brought it
settlement
to us
agreement?
previously.
So, Mr. Phillips, let me ask you the
You voted
question
no on
then.
it, Pat.
Beg your pardon?
You voted no on the settlement agreement.
Mr.
I don't have a
Phillips.
copy either, Mr. Moore.
Well, you never asked for one, Mr. Sterling. If you asked for one, I'll give you a copy of it.
Well, consider yourself asked.
All right?
Mr. Phillips, is it your opinion that the agreement that principally you prepared,
Why are you
that we
asking for
voted on,
opinions? Just ask.
and we voted on, we signed, I don't know if it was Commissioner Kehoe or Mr. Moore who signed it, is that contract not the governing document?
It's a different question.
That is a different question. What happened, Commissioner Holloway, as you will recall, is that as a result of the litigation, there was a court order and an approved settlement agreement that the parties entered into, and that settlement agreement was approved by the board.
All right, and that settlement agreement is governing the transactions between the two entities, is that correct?
It's governing the rate that the parties pay for wholesale water rate that is exchanged between the parties.
And that has particular time periods. It's not an agreement that goes
What is going
on
on
into,
with you?
well, no, I'm.
He's bringing this as an informational item to let us
Okay.
know what he's doing. I don't understand
Okay,
what,
canning, if you'll listen, you might learn. So now, and so I thought there was a methodology set out in that contract. So are you telling me that we are now, I'm trying to understand it, because this is $500,000 a year. So are you telling me that we are developing a different methodology?
That isn't what I said, Commissioner Holloway. What I said, you asked me what the scope of work was. I said, we are asked the consultant to look at the methodology that's been set forth in the settlement agreement and to advise us on a rate range that may or may not be appropriate on the agenda.
Well, then, how can the consultants perform that duty when we don't have a budget, we haven't done a cost of service study, we don't have any more information, I don't believe, than we had at the time Mr. Matthews offered an opinion on that subject. So, Carol can answer too.
Can I answer something here? This is the rate that we would pay to South Fork. They
I understand
essentially
that.
set the rate, but we are negotiating with them to make sure that it's the most favorable to us. It has absolutely nothing to do with a cost of service study, because that is what we charge to our customers. Now, certainly, once we've come to that decision with South Fork, that number will be included in the cost of service to help us determine the rates that should be charged throughout the district. But it would be good to know what that number is before the cost of service study takes place.
Okay, so are the consultants reviewing the recommendation then that came from South Fork Water Board's consultant? I'm trying to figure out what's going on here and what we're paying for.
Well, and that's what I'm telling you. This consent decree sets out a methodology, okay? And because, as Ms. Bright has said, South Fork has the responsibility to set forth what they think is an appropriate rate, and our responsibility is to review it, respond to it, and through a process of negotiation, we will settle on what the appropriate rate is.
So
So the method, because the court said, we think it's inappropriate for two public entities to be in the courtroom, a methodology was set out within the consent decree for determining rates.
So so our rate consultants are not looking at anything related to CRW. They are looking at information coming from South Fork.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so that is a completely new function for our rate consultants, for which we have not extended their contract.
Which is
It's a
why,
purchase order.
because it is a one-time event, and because it is a relatively small amount of money, we did it under a PO, which is totally appropriate under state purchasing laws and our rules.
Would you be kind enough to give the board a copy of that, please?
If the board asks me for a copy, I would.
Well,
I'd like
I'm
to have a
asking
copy,
for a
please.
copy of it.
Is that the consensus of the board?
I don't need one, no.
I don't need it.
Okay.
Commissioner Sterling, did you have a question?
Well, I'm a bit confused. So you can't have a copy because the consensus of the board is not 100% to get a copy of it?
No, what the request was initially is that the board wants a copy. I asked, is that the consensus of the board, that does the board want a copy? That is not what I said, Mr. Sterling, if you were listening to me.
Well, that's what come I asked you, because you're going to go ahead and let me have a copy, right?
I see, no, I have it right here, I can make a copy of it, it's not a problem.
I wouldn't want to put you out or anything. I have a
So
question.
now you don't want a
Teal.
copy? Okay, yes.
The issue of the joint operating plan, has it been dismissed or taken out of any contract that was between us and South Fork? And what's still left of the joint operating plan in regards to this court? Maybe there's nothing involved with it at all, it's still there.
Okay, we need to move on, and the joint operating plan doesn't have anything to do with these rates at the
Totally
moment.
separate issue.
So if you want to put it on the agenda, you can make a request, but we're going to move on for the
It's in
sake
the,
of time.
it's in the agreement, Tammy.
There is one caveat within the agreement that gives us, and South Fork acknowledges, that we will begin discussion of the joint operating plan, and that's in the agreement.
That's all I ask, sir.
Okay, next item, please.
As you know, we scheduled for next week a continuation of the joint executive session between South Fork, Sunrise Water Authority and CRW. That's scheduled on the 15th. The intent then is to complete the review of the 190 draft, and then to determine how, when, and if we will proceed toward finalizing the IGA. I attended a lunch and learn that's put on by AWWA Water Resources on the 18th of April. Very good presentation put on. I was able to sit through the Tualatin Valley Water District's rate presentation. I thought there was really 4 points there that were interesting. One is, because it was a joint presentation between TVWD and the City of Portland and their rate consultants, and they determined that in the Portland citywide area, that tri-county area, that the amount of our rate that they could attribute to conservation was about 6%. And that's the first time I had ever heard that number quantified. It's important because, according to their analysis, that over the last 10 years, that is a built-in loss of revenue that we will never get back. And they come to that conclusion based upon recent changes in the building code, and the fact that a lot of people are remodeling, and as they remodel, they're getting low-volume fixtures, low-volume appliances, and so they intend at TBWD to build that number in. The other thing that I thought was interesting is that they had done an analysis where, as you know, fire protection is something that is built into the rate structure that's borne by all users. And they have calculated that number to be $1.94 per CCL. So it's a pretty significant number. The second tidbit of information that I thought was interesting is that in terms of their goals as it relates to rates, their recommendation is that water entities essentially look at the fixed portion of their rate as the more appropriate area to do increases, because that represents costs that are borne by all users within the system. And also by doing that, it tends to give you a more stable rate structure. But their objectives were to improve their rate stability, because everybody seems to be experiencing the same issues region-wide as well as nationally. They don't want to give up on conservation. They think that that is a goal that really we need to be looking toward, given the cost of developing water, the potential shortage of water, and really the overall stewardship issue. And they have a mechanism built into their system where they can evaluate customer satisfaction. Their current ratings are at 98%, and their objective is to hold that. And the fourth objective they have is kind of a superordinate one, which is to make sure that whatever rate structure that they adopt is simple and easy for the ratepayer to understand. So I thought that was a good session. I thought I'd share that with you. We have the minutes of the Clackamas Harbor Water Providers meeting that was held on May 7th. And then the final action item that I have is the BCT discussion. You had asked at the last meeting that we provide a copy of the stamped survey drawings. We sent those out to the board. You have a copy of those. And so I'm really kind of at a point where I was last time asking. I also provided per the board's direction to Mr. Phillips, copies of the information that he had forwarded to me that I in turn forwarded on to the rest of the board. And so you have all that information in your packets. And if you have any questions, I'm prepared to, when Mr. Phillips is prepared to respond.
Mr. Howell?
Yeah, let's see. I'd like to go back to the RS 190 proposed IGA. I take it from your wording here that no modifications has been made to the wording that was distributed and reviewed by the two boards at the last meeting?
That is correct.
I believe, as I told you in a prior meeting, I think it was on February 6th, but I'm not sure, that because that document is being recommended to the two boards, and it was developed by a committee, that the committee should have been conducting its meetings in public. And I believe that this document at this point should be, in fact, made a public document. And so, and I say that because it has broad implications for, among other things, not only Clackamas River water, but the entire basin. And
Did you change your mind because you signed a confidentiality agreement to keep it to executive session, and I have a copy of it?
Yes, you've mentioned that document several times.
So now you're saying that it should be released to the public because the process is, which you signed and you agreed to, is that we would discuss it in executive session, and then when the time was appropriate, it would be brought forth to the public.
Commissioner Kehoe, you were not present when that original agreement was developed.
I have a copy.
It was explained, as it was explained to me, Commissioner Kehoe, the intent was that each board was designed so that the representatives of each board would be taking back the same information to their boards, so there were not going to be mixed messages.
We just had a joint meeting that you
the-
attended.
Now,
with both
at
boards.
that point, there were just early discussions about ways that we can work constructively together. Since then, it has devolved into a 42-page document with some far-reaching ramifications.
Commissioner Sterling?
I have not signed any document of secrecy or anything of that particular nature. The information that I have looked at and have spoken with legal people that I work with, at this time I put forth a motion before the board that any and all documents in regards to or spoken of or financial concerns pertaining to the IGA 190 between Clackamas River Water and Sunrise Water Authority at this time be provided to the ratepayers and be declared a public document.
Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Sterling, did you say that you already showed the document to people that are outside of this board? And our
Yes,
legal
I've
counsel?
showed it to my legal staff.
You disclosed confidential information
Yes, that's correct.
from executive session.
CRW business to your own legal staff?
That's correct.
You,
It's not like it's the first time.
no, I know, but he's not admitting it in public right now,
Well,
that he
yeah.
disclosed confidential information regarding.
The fact of the matter is, Kemper, it's not confidential information. It's public information that you're trying to put forth as some sort of a secret, keeping it away from the ratepayers.
Yeah, and I don't think so because it will be presented to the public at the appropriate time. Which legal counsel did you show that to?
What difference does that make to you?
Well, I'm just curious, which
Well,
one?
if you're curious about it, then I suggest that you issue a subpoena to find the information out.
We could do that.
Well,
Good.
I'm not
I welcome it.
interested-
Let's get it into court.
I'm not interested in doing that, but you
Let's
were-
get it into court.
Well, I'm just wondering who it was.
Who's avoiding the question?
Commissioner Holloway?
Yeah, one reason I believe that this should be made public sooner rather than later is that as the agreement is drafted, it allows by a vote of 3 CRW commissioners,
You are not
the
allowed.
transfer.
You are not allowed to disclose.
It allows the
Pat,
transfer
okay, you know what?
of
You
all
are
of
cut
CRW's
off.
assets,
Is there any-
including the water
That
treatment
is not
plant.
even true,
You did
Pat.
not read, you
Turn
did not
to be
read that
put
properly,
into
and you
the-
also are divulging
Commissioner
confidential
Kemper?
information at this point.
It
You know what?
allows
Okay.
three
That's
commissioners
a
to
total
vote
lie.
to
Adora,
transfer
you call the
I made sure of
CRW
it.
basically into
document.
the
Adora,
190.
you call it-
It also gives away
Pat.
It's a total
10
lie.
MGD of our water in exchange for no guarantee of
Pat,
protection
you know
of
what?
any
You-
kind.
you are
Commissioner
really
Holloway, let's just go ahead.
acting out of hand
Adora, would you
and
please
out
just
of
read the
control.
motion back so we can vote on it and move on, please?
Commissioner Sterling has moved that any documents related to the ORS 190 agreement between CRW and Sunrise Water Authority be provided to the ratepayers and the public. Commissioner Cardwell?
No.
Commissioner Holloway?
Yes.
Commissioner Kemper?
No,
Commissioner Sterling?
Yes.
And Commissioner Kehoe?
No. Okay,
Why are you
fail.
striking, Mr. Moore?
Because I just find it incredible that you could sit through a meeting with both boards where this issue was discussed. It was again affirmed that it was a confidential document. And if you had objections, why didn't you raise it in that meeting in front of both boards?
I did raise my objections, and I raised my concerns.
Okay, we need to move on. Commissioner Kemper?
Okay. I'm more than offended at this business of flagrantly divulging confidential information. First of all, we have a meeting scheduled for, is it the 15th or 17th?
Tuesday.
Of a joint executive session of both boards, at which we will do some further review. At that point, probably, we will be talking about when it's ready to go to the public, but that's not when you're going through all of the nitty-gritty stuff, the working out little simple things in it. And I'm very much offended that you so loudly proclaim that it's a giveaway of the plant, because I can assure you that's something that I have been very, very much protective of, and it will
No, I
happen.
appreciate your comments, Barbara.
The wording
but
allows it,
discussion's-
Commissioner.
The discussion's over. So we
The
need to
wording
move on.
allows it.
Are we on to the financial report, please, Carol?
I guess I'd like to have an answer on VCT.
On VCT.
Where are we on that?
We have a motion on the floor.
The board directed you, because Mr. Sterling's motion failed last time, to
There's no
stop
motion
to
on the
table the
floor.
BCT at the last meeting.
I
It
just
failed.
needed to hear that.
Yeah,
so I don't
it
wanna hear
failed, and the
again.
board told you to continue proceeding under the original agreements.
3 members of the board.
That's the majority, that's how democracy works.
Yes, I understand the shared opinion of what the board is. And so far as this survey,
Are we on the financial report, or we switch?
Well,
We're-
no, I
we're on
didn't
the
get a
financial
chance to- I
report.
didn't
Well,
get a
that's-
chance to-
We're moving on, you're gonna have to hold that at your time at the end of the meeting, then I'll consider it. Carol, can you please continue?
Good evening, Carol Bright, CFO for Clackamas River Water. I've got the financial reports to present to you this evening. First, we'll start off with the accounts receivable. As of April 30th, we had a balance of $829,000. This was right after the April 30th bills were submitted. Since April 30th, the balance is now just under 580,000. So we have collected approximately 250,000 in receipts, which is about a third of what the billing was. And would also like to report, we've been using the online payment, the web extensions now for quite some time. And so far in this billing cycle, we've received 325 payments via the web extensions for a total of $31,000. Here's our cash and investment position as of April 30th.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, could you say that again, please? The online payment
The online
system?
payments, we've had over 300 people made payments online,
Mhm.
and it was about $33,000 in payments from those people that logged on to the website and made their payments that way.
And how much time do you think that saves your staff?
It does save some time because we're not getting as many phone calls, although, you know, some days are better than others. I think we had a full moon last weekend, and Friday that showed. We had a lot of interesting comments and phone calls. We still frequently get phone calls from people that aren't in our district, and other districts kind of send them around. My staff works very hard to try to determine who they need to be talking to. We're also frequently confused as part of the county. So people call us and talk about their water bill and then want to know how they can pay their West bill, or who they need to talk to at West. And if it's Friday, we have to tell them to wait till Monday. But we do spend a lot of time trying to direct our customers where they need to get the help that they need.
So if I understand what you're saying, it's not saving your staff any time?
Well, my staff is smaller now than it used to be, and we are
Really?
able to keep up with the volume of work primarily due to the online payments. That does really help,
Oh,
because
so-
it's easy to post the payments, and it saves the phone calls.
So how many people do you have now compared to how many people you had?
I used to have 4 people in the front office, and now I have 3 because the records management position is in general admin. So she is backup for my staff, but she's not there all the time.
So it hasn't, but her duties haven't changed, right? So really isn't any different.
When the individual was sitting in that area, anytime the phone rang, they were available to answer it, whereas now, that's not the case. I only have 3 people sitting there in the front office.
I see, thank you.
Okay, cash position. This is our cash position as of April 30th. Again, we have just the general checking account and the local government investment pool. And again, since April 30th, we have about $250,000 more in receipts. So budget to actual through March. When we get to March, that's the end of the 3rd quarter of our fiscal year. Our general fund revenue is at about 66.6%. The general fund revenue is short of the 75% where you would expect us to be. The water revenue is also down, but we do have the April water revenue was $809,000, so that's, you know, obviously not reported in March, but just to give you an idea of where we're headed. And we do have one more billing cycle this year. We will be billing June 30th. We also have SDC revenue. It's at about 23.5% of the budget, which is not that great. So far, through through March 31st, we had 12 services that were sold. We have actually sold a couple more this week, and I think we've got one more coming in. So we're starting to see a little bit more activity. And I know there is a development that they came in and got their irrigation meter, so they haven't started, you know, they haven't gotten any meters for any of the homes, but, you know, that's potential in the future. So the expenditures through March 2012, again, 75% of the budget. Our expenditures are at 68.4% of the budget, so we are coming in under budget as of now. You know, reminder to the board, we have a lot of expenditures that are very steady throughout the year, but we also have some things that, you know, come at one particular time. The personal services budget is at 73.77. So that's pretty close to that 75%. We're not having quite as many dollars moved to the CIP as we have in the past, and we budget a little bit more than we've been sending over there. And materials and services is about 64%, capital outlay is about 55% of the budget. Our CIP expenditures are at about 31%, and again, CIP, even more than any of the others, those things come in chunks, so I anticipate we'll have significantly more dollars coming to CIP in the last quarter. And here's the comparison where we are 3/4 of the way through the year this year compared with last year. So here we are at gross payroll and accounts paid. We had 2 payrolls in the month of April. Week 14 was for pay date April 6th. Week 16 was for pay date April 20th. And then we have our net accounts payable of $329,793.68. Of that, CIP expenditures in that number were about $24,000.
Do I have a motion? No?
Yeah, I move to acknowledge payroll in the gross amount of $198,593.17 and acknowledge the net accounts paid of $329,793.68 for the month of April 2012.
Seconded.
Thank you. Discussion? Commissioner Holloway?
Yeah, I still believe that our financial reports should include significantly greater amount of information. That is not forthcoming by a decision of 3 members of the board at least. And I do believe that the board is not receiving sufficient information to monitor the financial activities of Clackamas River Water.
I
Is this
concur.
provided to the public out in the hallway?
It's part of the board packet that people can pick up.
Well, no, I'm just wondering because I'd like the public to know that we receive the financial reports. I mean, what we see on the screen is just a condensed presentation, but we receive all the checks, all the accounts payable, and this is the financials we receive for the month. So I just think that the public should be aware that that's provided at every month.
And one of the changes that we made this year that I thought would be helpful, I haven't really gotten any feedback, is we did include that column that shows the actual, we used to just show the year-to-date number, now we're showing the current month that we're talking about and the year-to-date number.
Thank you. Commissioner Holloway?
You know, I would just point out, Commissioner Kehoe, that Mr. Moore and I believe Ms. Bright tonight, I'm sure at least Mr. Moore commented that the accounts payable information that the board receives is not adequate for the board to track actual expenditures. He actually
No,
made my
he
case.
said that for contracts.
I can-
He said it was hard to
I would
track
like
it
to
for
comment to that.
contracts. He didn't say it for everything, Pat.
The problem with accounts payable is if you're trying to say, like, annually, we paid this much to this vendor, at the end of the year, when we're doing all of our financial activity to close the year, we do accrue stuff back. So many of the payments made, particularly in the first 2 weeks of July, but even some payments all the way through the end of August, could have been accrued back to the June time period. The cash goes out of our bank in July or August, whenever you see the cash, that accounts payable record is a record of the cash that goes out of our bank. But it doesn't specifically tell you what time frame that dollar amount was coded to for financial reporting purposes. And it also, from looking at the accounts payable, it doesn't tell you if a particular item is divided amongst several general ledger accounts. So it's difficult to take the accounts payable listing and then cross-track it to the financial reports that you have, because it could be split up. And in fact, we could get an invoice that might have, you know, CIP cost on it as well as general fund cost, depending upon who the vendor is and what work is happening.
Well, and that's exactly my point. When we have situations that as we have had in the past, and we may be having currently, where contract costs, contract payments have exceeded the approved contract amount or have exceeded the general manager's spending authority, the board has, by the statement of Mr. Moore, by the statement of Ms. Bright, the board has no way of checking any of that and making sure that our financial processes.
The audit goes over contracts. Report.
Commissioner, we are, by at least what we've been told, roughly $1 million in the hole this year, expense over revenue. And certainly in the case of Ms. Cochran, based on the checks that have been written to her, and of course, you're right, I have no idea what the time payment was, we have exceeded $50,000, and this board has the fiduciary responsibility throughout the year, it's not the auditor's responsibility, to look after the financial welfare of CRW. And we do not receive enough information to do that.
One thing I would like to correct is we are not $1 million in the whole expenditures over revenue. The $1 million that we need is in order to meet our debt covenants, which means that we have to have coverage for not only our general fund revenue to expenditures, but to cover our debt payment, which is about $625,000, plus an additional 25%. So that's where we get to the $1 million. The actual difference between general fund revenue and general fund expenditures is not $1 million.
Okay, so it's only, if it's only half a million. The point is,
CFO.
we don't have enough information to monitor CRW's financial transactions. It's that uncomplicated.
Well, you send out spreadsheets every meeting. I think you have plenty of information. Adora, can you read, can you call for the vote, please?
Commissioner Cardwell?
Yes.
Commissioner Holloway?
No.
Commissioner Kemper?
Yes.
Commissioner Sterling?
No.
And Commissioner Kehoe?
Yes.
Motion
And that
carries
actually brings
3-2.
us, thank you, actually brings us to our audit.
Yes.
Thank you.
This was listed under action items, and this is more for acknowledgement of the board. At the July 2011 meeting, I brought to the board a request to initiate a contract with Moss Adams to take care of our 2011 fiscal year audit. And the board approved a one-year contract with a one-year extension. So we are currently talking with Moss Adams, and we are in a position to move forward with that extension, to exercise that one-year extension with Moss Adams. We now will have had Moss Adams for 3 years, which I think is a really good thing, but we kind of got into our relationship with them in an unusual way. So staff is proposing that we would initiate an RFP for audit services in early 2013. So next spring, early in the year, I will be bringing information to the board about an RFP for audit services. And, you know, I have greatly enjoyed working with Moss Adams. They are extremely professional, and I would ask, you know, invite them to respond to the RFP, but we will make it a public RFP, advertise in the paper, and see who else might want to do that work for us.
It's a good idea. I think also a good idea to see, you know, to not just use the same auditor
Right.
year after year
Right.
after year.
But it's also not a good idea to change, and prior to, when
Yeah.
Moss Adams got here, we had 3 auditors in
Exactly.
3 years, and that doesn't do us any favors.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. So do you have a motion?
I'm not even sure we need a motion,
We don't need a
Tammy,
motion.
because last year the board authorized the one-year extension.
I do believe we need a motion, but I have a question.
Because what you provided for us has a motion on it with the effective
That's
date.
kind of where we were going down the path, and then we said, oh, wait. So a motion's fine with me.
I have a question. See, the ORSs that govern system development charges require that by January of each year, the board be presented with a detailed list of of what SDC revenues came in, where they fall, improvement or reimbursement, and how during the preceding year, SDC money was spent on a project-by-project basis. And that, to my recollection, if I'm wrong, please correct me, that reporting has not been made to the board. I looked through the audit to see if it was in the audit, and it's not. So I'm very concerned. That's such a basic piece of budgeting, such a basic piece by ORS, and such a basic piece of reporting. Frankly, I can't imagine why Moss Adams didn't tell us that we hadn't done it, or they didn't do it in the course of the audit.
Well, I know certainly as part of the audit, they do review all of the board minutes. I do not have all the ORS memorized. I can look into SDC requirements and get back to you at a later meeting.
It doesn't have anything to do with the minutes. This is a.
Well, it does. If we had discussed it in a meeting, then they would have seen it in the minutes.
No, but I believe that the auditors have to take a look at STC funding and how it is spent.
Yes.
And if it is in compliance or not. And if it's not in compliance, then they would come back to the board, or it would be in the report. It would say, no, you did not use these STC funds appropriately.
Correct.
Well,
But as far as I'm aware, it is not mandatory that the board see that unless the board wants to see that.
Tammy, it's state law.
It's state law that we have to be in compliance as to how
No.
it's spent. Yes,
It's
Pat.
state law that a report has to be made by January 1 of each year. And it's the topic beyond what SDCs that came in and fund transfers. There's nothing whatsoever to that effect in the audit. So until you know what you're talking about, I suggest you withhold comment.
You probably have the ORS stating all that with you?
I don't. That's one of the few things I didn't print out.
Yeah.
But
Well, I'm not-
it is there, and you will find that it is there.
Commissioner Carroll, give a motion.
I move to authorize the general manager to negotiate a one-year contract extension with Moss Adams LLP for audit services effective date May 10, 2012.
Have a second?
A seconder.
Thank you. Adora, can you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Cardwell?
Yes.
Commissioner Holloway?
No?
Commissioner Kemper?
Yes.
Commissioner Sterling?
No.
And Commissioner Kehoe?
Yes.
Motion carries 3-2.
Number 5?
Still me. You have before you Resolution 12-2012. This is updating the fees and charges. The last update was effective July 1st, 2011. We haven't made a lot of changes, so pretty much it's the same fees and charges that we had last year. We did change a few things to the TMO, which is time, materials, and overhead. What we've changed is the full installation of a water service, the fire hydrant review, plan inspection, and CRW project specifications have all been changed to time, materials, and overhead. What we found is the items that we did have flat fees, while there's not currently a lot of development, so it's harder to get numbers to come up with an average, is that there have been a few instances where that flat fee did not cover the cost. So we have determined it would be much more effective for us and make sure that the new services are paying their way if we do all of them at the time, materials, and overhead, requiring a reasonable deposit up front, and then closing it out when the project's done, either sending them a refund or telling them the balance due.
Mr. Holloway?
Yeah, this is another one of those uncomfortable for me situations where we're sort of mixing apples and oranges. And if you look at section, let's see, of resolution 12-2012, page 2, section 3, it includes a got it there?
It's section 3.
It's page 2 of 6. Section
I'll wait till Ms. Bright has it. Okay. That is echoing a section of resolution 06-2012, which made a change to board policy. And as I'm sure you're aware, you can't change board policy simply by a vote. It's got to be a process. And so
This is just referring to what the board stated in that policy. This does not change policy. It's just talking about the fact that cost at a time and materials basis is included for public records requests.
well, what I'm trying to convey to you, Ms. Bright, is that on December the 8th, 2011, resolution 06-2012, I'll be happy to show you my copy here. There is section 3. It is modifying board policy.
Yeah, that's
So-
a different resolution, and it went on
But
the
Tammy-
agenda twice.
Tammy, if you'll listen, you'll hear what I'm trying to say, I hope. This is being moved from a portion of board policy to simply,
No, it's not, it's referring to a board policy in this section. It's not,
Well-
like you said, it's not changing board policy, it's just a reference.
if you look at, look at the red line back here, it's here somewhere, you can find it. The red line shows that it's being crossed out, and it's being moved. And let me find it
I
here.
believe we did that at the board's request last year.
Oh, let's see. Okay, this was, you're modifying, let's see, 3/2011. And it was dealt with in 06-2012. I'm just you know,
It's
I don't
just
get
it's
it.
just a reference pad, it's not changing board policy. It's just showing a
Well-
portion of board policy under section 3 of this resolution. And that's exactly what she told you.
Yeah, but resolution 606-2012 modified section 8.3 of board policy.
Okay.
That's what I'm telling you.
So you
Well,
had
we
a
understand
resolution
that,
that
but
changed policy.
what does that have to do with this?
Well,
Which board policy did it amend? Did you have a copy of it?
beg your pardon?
Which board policy did it
This
amend?
It's
one,
06,
2012.
That was,
Where they're
no, that's the
changing-
date of, that's the date. But what board
No, that's not the
policy
date,
did that
that's the
resolution amend?
That's the resolution.
Well, the resolution,
Not
at
the
least-
We're,
at
we're,
least-
we're trying to amend this section. We're not trying to amend board policy.
Well,
We're
as-
trying to amend
Okay,
this res-
as I read it anyway, it looked to me that we were eliminating something that was actually referred to under board policy.
Where?
And trying to amend it with this
We're not.
resolution.
And-
If
and we're not.
you disagree
No,
with me,
this
And we're not.
resolution is simply
The thing- the
referring
thing
to
that's
action of the
changed-
board.
The things that's changed is that in red, it says the overhead rates charged by the district for work performed by staff or for work performed by outside contractors is appropriated or is appropriate. I don't understand that.
That was
Then
a
there's
typo,
two-
that was a
But you're
typo in the
also-
old one.
And,
That's being struck, that language is being struck.
and then the underlined is the,
Is the
lang-
new.
the language is new language.
Correct.
but it says,
In,
it says the board
how does that
hereby
amend board
delegates.
policy?
If you go back on page 1, under section 2 of the proposed resolution, it says that the board hereby delegates authority to the general manager to make certain documents available. And I believe that that is covered under board policy. That's all I'm saying.
And this
So
is
if that's
exactly,
the
there's no
case-
changes there, that's exactly how it was last year.
I mean, maybe we did it wrong last year too, I don't know.
We did do it wrong last year. But this is in reference to board policy, correct?
We're
It's not
just
changing
we're not
or
changing
amending,
board policy.
exactly,
We're
it's just
just
a
referring
reference.
to resolutions
But it's
related to board
But
policy.
it's changing more than just the fees, correct?
No,
Well, yes, from last
Section
year,
2
from
is
2011 to
making-
this year.
A definite change to
Section-
more than just the fees.
section 2 is exactly the same as section 2 last year, and it's just, again, referring to the list of fees and charges, including fees for public records.
You have the red line version, there's no strikeouts in it, Pat.
Okay, so, well, what has confused
I think
me
we had the
is
same
that,
conversation last year.
that there, well,
Well, we did the section 3.
it's confusing me because, resolution 06-2012 deals with the issue of, under item E, oh, you don't have that resolution. Well, it's public records, 8.3, public records modifications. And under 8.3, item E, it says the board from time to time may set a reasonable charge, et cetera. And then it says, the general manager, as the custodian of records, shall have the ability to waive charges or fees for requests requiring nominal effort or expense as the general manager deems appropriate. So that is board policy, right? Okay. Now, this says, under section 2, the board's delegating authority to the general manager to make certain documents available to the public without charge in furtherance of customer service.
Policy.
And it changes the wording that is here in board policy.
It doesn't change
It
the
doesn't
policy
change the
though.
wording.
The
It doesn't
policy
change the
says the
policy.
general manager can waive the fees, and this says the general manager can waive the fees. They're both saying
But
the
it,
same
but
thing.
it sets a whole bunch of conditions relative to that. It is a change, and it is a change in board policy.
It is not a change in policy. The policy states that he's allowed to waive fees. This one states it's amended fees and charges for certain services, and it lays out a process as to how he could waive a fee.
Well, the difference, the big difference is, Penny, that it moves from saying that the general manager as custodian of records shall have the ability to waive charges or fees to a language that says the board hereby delegates authority to the general manager. Now,
That's what the board
I
policy
don't know
does.
why, first of all, I don't know why the original wording wasn't okay. But what I'm saying is, it is my belief
So do you want to change the wording to section 2, Pat?
that change, well, it seems to me that this is changing board policy,
Well,
and you can't
and
do
it-
it like
and it
this.
isn't
That's all.
changing
And
policy.
I will remind the board that you do have the red line document in front of you. We have not changed section 2. This is exactly the same as section 2 from the
From last
prior.
year,
Hang
absolutely.
on, let me see. So my copy.
Okay, so we need to move on. Commissioner Cardwell?
I move to adopt resolution number 12-2012, amended fees and charges, effective date July 1, 2012.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner Sterling?
The documents attached, number 3, miscellaneous service charges, miscellaneous fees and charges, comparison to current fees, attachment A. We take a look at attachment A. It shows the base rate is having been raised 42.75%. It's my understanding that the board voted and approved a base rate of 14.25%. This is a correct domestic service charge.
The board approved a resolution that was agreeing to rates in Schedules A and B. And Schedules A and B did have the water rates weighted more heavily towards the fixed fees. What we were looking at was an estimate of a 14.25% revenue increase. And we were instructed by the board to find $800,000 that we could cut from the budget and then have a rate increase that would generate $800,000 in revenue. And that is what we did. So the board had the packet in front of them that had Schedules A and B, and these are the rates that were on those schedules that the board voted in favor of.
And that's not what I recall, but of course, it's all public information at this particular point. It is in fact not 14.25% that was put forth, and that is written on the document of Schedule A and Schedule B, which states 14.25 for year 1 and year 2.
It was 14.25%.
And I do not recall
revenue
the
increase.
conversation was that looking for the cuts, that we're going to take and have the ratepayers pay for the cuts. So there's actually no cuts at all.
Well, no, the original recommendation by the majority of the rate committee was for a rate increase of 28.5%. The board instructed staff to proceed with a 14.25% rate increase and to find an equivalent amount of cuts. So
Okay.
instead of raising 28.5% and just not doing any cuts at all, we did a 14.25% revenue increase and an $800,000, which is an equivalent amount of expenditure reductions.
So you in fact raised the base rate 42.75%.
It's whatever it is on this schedule, but that was Schedule A that was attached to the documents that the board voted in favor of.
Well, let me make it clear as far as public record is concerned. The vote was for 14.25. It was not for 42.75. I understand the manipulation, there's no doubt about it whatsoever.
It's not a manipulation.
It's hard to cut $800,000.
I'm offended by that.
Well,
We
then
did cut
be
we did
offended,
cut
Ms. Bright,
$800,000.
because that's what occurred. And the public record shows that.
So your lack of paying enough attention to what you were voting for, Mr. Sterling, you're blaming on our CFO.
No, you put
No, you certainly are.
14.25 forward,
You
Mr. Cardwell.
voted for it too, dude.
That's right. I voted for it across the board, not 42.75 against the base rate, the least who can afford to pay it.
I guess you better pay attention to what you're doing then, huh?
You're right.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't anticipate such deception.
It's right there in print, right in front of your face, so how can that possibly be a deception?
It was attached to the document.
It was right there.
I mean, you go through them, you're writing stuff all over them. Maybe you should bring it to your attorney and he
Don't
can
blame it
clarify
on,
it
don't
for
blame it
you.
on our CFO, blame it on yourself.
Yeah, maybe he can read it for you. Commissioner Kemper?
There's absolutely no deception. It says 14.25% at the top, yes, but that, attachments A and B went with that. And if you read those, if you read them, you would have seen that the base fee, the service fee, was where the major increase was done. The object was to raise a certain amount of money. It was made very plain, stated very plainly. I've gone over this with Commissioner Holloway online, and I thought she was clear in it by now. We did not raise our water rates 44%, as you people are spreading.
No, I agree with Commissioner Kemper, the base rate was raised, whatever it was, 42.75%.
The cost of a gallon of milk a month.
Commissioner Kemper, I don't care about milk or beer or,
Right.
you know, I usually drink water. My concern is this, and I made the same error, and I freely acknowledge Mr. Cardwell that it's my fault that I didn't do the math and catch it ahead of time. But, no, I mean, I'm
Did
accepting
Precision
it.
Cast Parts and Carry call you? I hope you paid him back for that lunch.
Commissioner, I don't, and frankly, I don't know what you're talking about. You state that that is in fact a 14.25% increase. However, I looked all the way through the rate consultant's material, and I transcribed that meeting, and I listened all the way through March 22nd. And I can't find anywhere in our information, and if you have it, I believe that it is incumbent upon you to provide it. The number of customers that we have in each of our customer categories. And within that, and I had to go to the audit to get anything of that sort. Within that, then the consumption within each of the block rates, again, for each of those categories of customers. And so if I'm understanding you correctly, you did that calculation using those statistics, and you believe that what you came out with is an across-the-board 14.25. Is that correct?
It is not an across-the-board 14.25.
I mean, it's the equivalent. It's
It
the
is.
end result.
It is an increase in the revenue of about $800,000. And yes, I did do that, but I will suggest that it would be wonderful if I could provide all of that information to you, but it is a moving target. We have customers that move in and out of the district all of the time, and the raw data that I provided to the rate consultants shows everybody. So if you look across and say, well, this person's gonna pay the $16.70 every 2 months, and they're gonna pay for this much consumption, you might have the same account with a detail on the end different, because somebody moved out and somebody moved in. So if I'm counting on that $16.70 for both of those line items, I'm not gonna get that. So it's not quite as easy as you suggest. But let me finish. I did, when we were given a rate base and tiers provided by the rate consultant. And when we walked out of here and I was told, let's look at 14.25%, I did not say, okay, 1670, that sounds good. I contacted the rate consultant and said the rate committee had recommended the 28.5% weighted to the fixed cost. What would that look like with a 14.25%, attempting to get half of the revenue that we were going to get with the 28.5?
Well, but the board, Ms. Frank, didn't discuss weighted or unweighted, correct?
The board
And
would
so
have
did
the
you go,
information.
what I'm trying to do is find out. Ms. Bright says that this end number is, however it's arrayed in the rate
Well, you
structure.
told me how you found it, because you shot out the emails before this agenda came out. So you got those
I found
numbers
it,
from?
it took me 2 weeks to get the resolution in the first place. And after I got it, I realized two things.
The
One,
resolution was in the board packet.
like,
It is
it's
every
only
board
Tammy,
meeting.
the motion called for writing into the resolution, doing a cost of service rate study as soon as possible in the new fiscal year. That was not there, correct? Second, then when I got it, I did the math and I realized
Well, you
it
did the
had-
math late after the meeting.
So, and I will freely acknowledge that. My other, but I do believe that it is only fair for the board or a board member, I'll take it completely on myself, to ask for the documentation that supports doing it in the way that you chose to do it.
Well, and
And-
that would be a board direction, the rate hearing's over,
It's
we
over.
already approved it.
And again, I relied on the experts. I relied on the rate consultants to tell me what that 14.25 would
Okay,
look
so,
like.
so you have something then from the rate consultants, so give that to me. I'll
We
be
have
happy to
this
have it.
from the rate consultants.
Well, I don't think I have that. I know
It's
it
in your
packet,
packet.
right there.
But this is just a reference,
Okay, we're gonna move on.
a restatement. Okay, but the big issue is that we're back billing, and that's illegal.
No,
It's
we're
not
not.
illegal.
The rate change was approved effective after the April reads.
And it was approved to be effective May the 1st.
So any billings, May 1st or later, would be at the new rate.
I have talked to various people who are highly skilled in this and been assured that it is illegal, just as it was illegal last time we did it. So you're billing them for April water. Well, Commissioner, I don't find it funny.
Well, what I don't find funny at all, Ms. Holloway, is that
It's rather
the board has voted on this issue. Staff has followed the direction of the board, and here we are going back and replowing old ground. When is the decision final so we can move on? You're sitting here
It's
blaming
final.
staff
Well,
for stuff that
let's-
can't
you
even
know
look
what?
at.
Mr. Moore, the
We
resolution says,
resent that we have to do this kind of work and continue, we never done with an issue.
well, I resent, Mr. Moore, that the board is given insufficient information.
Then why did you ask for it at the
And-
time, Pat?
It's
And
over,
the
Pat.
motion, the resolution says these rates are effective on May the 1st. And we all know that by the way our meter readers do the readings, people are going to be charged for anywhere between 1 and 3 weeks of April water.
That's why we notified them in advance that the rate increase was coming.
But that doesn't make it legal, Mr.
Okay.
Moore.
Commissioner Kepler, do you have?
I just have
comment?
one question that puzzled me a little bit, and that's Exhibit 2, where it gets down to the vans and the cars and that sort of thing. You don't charge like $20 an hour for a Ford Windstar, do you?
That is the charge, and
These actually are hourly
we don't rent
charges.
it out. That's the charge if it's used on a particular job. But typically, those vehicles are not used on jobs. But if they are used on private project jobs, or if they are used on CIP jobs, this equipment is charged out at this hourly rate.
Okay, that's just what I wanted. Thank you.
Would this pertain if we went to somebody else, we exchanged it, let's say, with someone else?
That would depend on the agreement with Sunrise. I couldn't really address that.
Okay, so there's no roster for that.
There's
Dora?
no one?
Dora, can you call the vote, please?
Commissioner Cardwell?
Yes.
Commissioner Holloway?
No.
Commissioner Kemper?
Yes.
Commissioner Sterling?
No.
Commissioner Kehoe?
Yes.
Motion carries 3-2.
So, Mr. Moore, Mr. Phillips, Ms. Bright, you're convinced that this kind of building is legal?
Okay, it wouldn't be in front of you if we weren't convinced.
I beg your pardon? Wouldn't be in front of me if what?
You wouldn't be in front of you if you weren't convinced.
Can we move on, please? Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda, agenda item 6, is the annual topic that we bring up, asking the board to approve write-off of bad debt. Typically, we bring this to you in June. I've got it here in front of you today because, as I had mentioned before, I'm going to be out of town for the June meeting, so I won't be here. And I thought that would just be easier to get it done with. Since I handed out the information to you, the number has gone down because we have received payments on 4 different accounts. The top one, we just got a partial, that was a bankrupt account, and we did receive a partial on that. The other 3, we did receive payment in full of those accounts, so the bad debt write-off has gone down from what was included in the packet that was given to you last week. The number could change again, but it will only go down. So if the board authorizes the total write-off, maybe you might want to add not to exceed the $8,876.16.
How does one place get such a large balance? Is it a department?
A large commercial account.
A large commercial
Yeah.
account, okay. And it's a business that's out of business or
No,
bankrupt?
bankruptcy, reorg, and now recently bought out. But we won't see any more money out of the bankruptcy.
So, okay, so we received, 9085 had 2 separate bills,
Yes,
and they paid one.
those are both on the bankruptcy list at the top.
I have a question for you. Some of these are dated back to 2010, but I thought we do bad debt write-off.
It depends on when the account closed. And so these are accounts that would have been closed prior to June of 2011. So anything that was closed prior to June of 2010 was in the listing last
Except for
year.
last year. Okay.
But they pretty much average about $100 an account,
Yeah,
which means you're taking pretty good care of them.
yeah. We worked pretty hard to try to help people make arrangements with us to pay before they get too deep in. And, you know, frankly, many of these are closed accounts. They moved out of the district and just never paid their final.
Right, a lot of accounts.
We'll have a motion.
Yes. I move to approve resolution number 13-2012, bad debt write-off for fiscal year 2011-2012, uncollected water bills not to exceed $8,876.16, effective date May 10th, 2012.
A second?
I have one thing is it doesn't match the
needs to
resolution
be
number.
modified.
That's why I stated it out.
No, you said 8,000, I thought.
I did.
But the
Because
resolution
we've
says 9.
collected
No,
money
she
since.
recollected.
since we
Oh,
She had a
collected.
new
I'm
number on
sorry.
board of things.
So it's that amount.
So the resolution, I'll have a new resolution to sign.
Yeah, we'll have
Yeah.
to change the resolution.
So,
I second, do you have a second?
Seconded,
Okay.
yeah.
okay, so is the understanding, or I guess, Mike, would you take an amendment that approves this resolution subject to the change in the resolution? Because this is what we have before us right now, 9,184.
Well, she's just gonna
I
change
think
the
I
resolution.
effectively changed it by stating the dollar amount not to exceed.
I'll make sure I sign the right resolution.
Okay.
You said number.
Okay, so just be sure the resolution gets changed.
Dora, can you call the vote, please?
Commissioner Cardwell?
Yes.
Commissioner Holloway?
Yes.
Commissioner Kemper?
Yes.
Commissioner Sterling?
Yes.
Commissioner Keyhoe?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, now we're on agenda item 7. This year we have something that we haven't seen in a couple of years, but we do have a bad debt write-off from our miscellaneous accounts receivable. This is where we bill people for hydrant meter rentals and damage to CRW property and stuff like that. So we do have a few. The invoices have been attached for you to see what they are, but the dollar amounts on the invoices might be different than what we're writing off. Did we attach the invoices or did we take it? Okay. Because some of these had deposits on them, so of course we utilized the deposit and the 10 balance left over. So the write-off for these miscellaneous billings is $2,554.42.
Commissioner Cardwell?
I move to approve resolution number 14-2012, bad debt write-offs for fiscal year 2011-2012, unpaid miscellaneous billings effective May 10th, 2012.
I second it.
Thank you.
Question?
Commissioner Holloway?
So, I don't understand why we have two different classifications of bad debt.
We have the utility billing receivables, which is what the first one was, and that's our regular bi-monthly bills. We also have a miscellaneous receivable that is for activities outside of that. People on the miscellaneous receivable could be people that don't even live in the district, but they are doing business in the district, or they run over a fire hydrant in the district.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
The invoices are attached, Pat.
Pardon me?
The invoices are attached.
Yeah, no, I understand. Thank you.
I have a question for you, like for the Robin Investments, the one with the subdivision with the main improvements. I'm just wondering how you figure out like a deposit and in comparison to like the cost of the project.
That's kind of an engineering calculation. So, you know, depending upon the level of work that's going to be done, they kind of come up with an engineering estimate of how much the project should cost.
And then who determines the deposit amount?
Engineering does.
Engineering does
Yeah.
as well. And so, I'm sorry, Bob, so how does that work? Is it different for each customer, or is it like a percentage?
Each project, CIP, or private, usually private development,
It's usually- it's
their
private
engineers come up with a cost estimate of what the water line, what the work is going to be. And we use a percent of that of what their deposit is going to be. We review that because many times they try to lowball us, just keep their fees down. And of course, we make it clear it's time and material. We watch our dollars, we keep them informed. And unfortunately, we have had in the past, I think a subdivision or something go under. And they failed to pay their final amount.
And then they're not around
Well,
anymore.
yeah,
They
that's-
probably paid $8,000 or
and that's-
$9,000 with the fees, and we got toward the end, ready to close out, we send the final bill, and the contractor and the bank kind of closed up shop. That did happen a few times a few years ago.
And I just asked the question because I mean, it's a large amount compared to like these individual homeowners. If it's something that we might want to consider taking like a larger deposit.
And again, we haven't done a write-off in the miscellaneous receivables for 2 or 3 years. So certainly not since I've been here. So it doesn't happen very often. Typically, the businesses
Yeah,
are.
but I mean, but it's a big chunk of change when it does.
Yeah.
Dora, can you call the vote, please?
Commissioner Cardwell?
Yes.
Commissioner Holloway?
Yes.
Commissioner Kemper?
Yes.
Commissioner Sterling?
Yes.
Commissioner Keyhoe?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
And before before you take off, Ms. White, would you check and hopefully bring back to the board at the next meeting that CIP information that we should be receiving under state law?
She's not going to be here the next meeting.
Oh, well, you can send somebody else with it. Well, I mean, can we expect it or not?
It's not really a board action, is that something the board?
Up to the board.
feels-
Can
The
you
board
be
doesn't want a
explicit
state
about-
mandated
Can you be
report?
explicit, can you be explicit about the state law so she knows exactly what it is she's supposed to comply with?
I'm sure that Mr. George can point her to the correct section in the ORSs that deal with SDCs.
Mr. George,
Mr. George?
I thought you said that Mr. George would point her to that.
Well,
That's
Mr.
what she
George
said.
is intimately acquainted with SDCs and how they get applied to capital projects. So I would expect he's familiar with that section of the ORSs. If not, I'll be happy to send her an email.
Are you ready? Thank you. You can go on with your presentation, that's on the agenda, please.
All right. I guess I'll request that the board recess per the item for a design contract award consideration. We have a local contract review board issue I'd like to present. Do we convene to that as part of the presentation, or do you wait till after?
No, we have to convene it right now, so, so right now I move to recess the regular meeting and convene the local contract review board.
All right.
Right?
Okay, agenda item number 8. Tonight, I'm bringing forward to you for consideration a design contract award for a professional service agreement for design of water lines and substations related to that, for relocating CRW water lines as related to the JTA project. And I'm going to have 2 board action requests. One is the exemption for a competitive bid selection requirement of professional service grade agreement above $150,000. And I guess we reconvene into the regular session. No, it's all in one.
It's all done here.
Okay. And then request the board to approve a resolution authorizing and direct TSA professional service agreement contract to OBAC Consulting Engineers in the amount that I have, $182,700. Attached here is the scope of work from OBAC, with 8 pages. I won't go through it. I'm sure it was light reading for you.
It's okay.
And then the resolution at the end. I'll keep the background a little brief only because we've talked about JP quite often. It hasn't changed now. They pretty much got the alignment, 2-lane highway, closing lawn field, crossing 82nd, bicycle paths. That whole design issue has now been pretty much settled. I am now just recently got fairly complete preliminary drawings. So, OBEC, and the reason I'm heading for this, let's talk about OBEC a little bit. They were selected by the Oregon Department of Transportation to do the design work for the highway work and the storm and the related work up through the design. So they've been out surveying, potholing, and they were also hired to do the utility conflict portion of the work that ODOT does. So what they do is they work with utilities, and they come up with a list, working with staff, and we've been working on that for about a year, a little over a year and a half, I bet, with, let's see, we have 45 conflict locations. So that's a fair amount. So as part of the budget process, I was a little behind the 8 ball in presenting any type of numbers. I'm still there. So I'm going along the line that in this presentation, that all the work, engineering and construction can be our responsibility until such time that we finish the preliminary design, get the conflict response letter to ODOT so they can respond back to us and tell us what is reimbursable and what is not.
So that's the difference that OBEC has placed in here when they separated those
reimbursables and non-reimbursables?
Yes.
They have done a preliminary look at it. I've been working with them, agreeing to some, and some I do not.
Good, good.
We will, together, as part of their work, they're supposed to work with us, like they work with Wes, get the conflicts together, send them to ODOT, we sit down, negotiate what's reimbursable based on the law, come up with the numbers, and move forward into construction. What I did give you a kind of a sequence of dates, and it's kind of an excuse on anything because of my lateness in this, but a lot of this conflict notification notice was supposed to have been to us last October, November. Worked the way it is, I don't know why, but we didn't get the conflict letter until March 9th. So with that then, I also then in April got the drawings. And for the last few weeks, we've been working with OBEC, going through these conflicts. With the drawings, we got the conflict along with the drawings. I requested, because of the lateness of this whole sequencing to get this work done for October, I asked OBEC to put a scope of work together. It does a couple things. It streamlines my ability to work with an engineer that's always familiar with the project. Already has gotten the base drawings. Even though the base drawings would be available to another consultant, they would still have to gear up and understand, and the drawing's not done yet. So by proceeding down this line, trying to use OBEC and utility or civil engineers that are familiar with the project, I believe we will save money in the long haul and meet the deadlines. I'm bouncing around a little bit here, but in the analysis, basically, the Oregon Public Contract statutes allow contracting agents such as CRW to adjust their selection process, because we do have a selection process in our contract review board rules. Especially when it comes to, let's see here, all contract specific procurements on a one-time basis, and we have not used OBEC before. This is a one and only shot on the design piece that we plan on doing. When it comes to the construction phase of the work, now this is just design I'm talking about with these people. The design, construction will be done in-house. We'll manage with ODOT staff. We will do our inspection, working with ODOT inspectors to inspect and manage payment. Yes, ODOT does all the payment, but we get to look at it and say, yeah, we agree with that. Especially if we see work that does not meet our specifications. So we will work closely with that. So this is strictly design.
Mr. George, are you saying that CRW will take and look for contractors to fulfill the actual work itself?
No, the intent is to incorporate CRW improvements in the ODOT drawings.
Okay.
And specification. ODOT will bid the project.
Okay.
They will manage the contract.
So we don't have to worry about that. You just need to...
Only for oversight purposes, making sure the numbers are right. And also, during that process of management and construction, our staff will be in the field inspecting with ODOT inspectors.
Because each one of these, they clearly state CRW shall be responsible for construction phase, oversight, and field inspection services.
So I want you to understand that this
you'll be out there in
is
your
only for one
rubber
phase.
boots.
Yeah, we'll be on the ground with boots. Within our own CRVC Division 54, Section 4, there's items to be addressed to allow this sort of exemption. And basically, the nature of the agreement, the estimate cost and cost savings to the agency. It's supposed to be a narrative of the waiver and the reasons. The request for proposal would be most appropriate, and a statement of alternative process that would be used if any. I'm going to take the last one first. It really comes down to, I do not have an alternative process because of the lateness of the project. I've been put in a position, it's a no-win position for us. But what I am feeling very comfortable about, I did look their numbers forward and backwards, talking to the engineers on the scope of work. It is very well defined as what we found to be in conflict. working with the design numbers, even with a fairly complex, lengthy spreadsheet, it is what ODOT does now in their management of cost for consultants. In my experience, I've done a lot of these estimates over the years. I work it the other way. I look at how many sheets of design they have to work, details, and effort. Take the total cost and divide it by the number of sheets it takes. It so happens that in the engineering civil world, it costs about $4,000 to $6,000 per sheet of design. One of these sheets, that's what the effort it takes to design.
And that's how
It's a rule of thumb.
That's how come they've specifically stated how many sheets in each section that they're going to allow.
I ask for that kind of information.
Okay.
It helps me
Yeah.
double check what they're offering as a final product.
Yeah.
I don't want to pay $182,000 for 3 sheets of paper.
Turns control back to you.
It helps me manage and understand what they're offering.
Good, good.
So it comes down in there, I mean, you take the sheets and all that, it's about $3,900 per sheet. Not unreasonable, okay?
I'm sorry, I have a quick question for Dean.
Yes.
Dean, I don't have my contracting book with me, but is there a provision that allows us to waive, the RFP process if we're working along with another public agency that is utilizing a contractor and it involves the same project?
There's not a specific exemption for that specific type of situation, but there is an exemption that allows CRW to exempt a specific contract and waive the selection process that you would normally go through for this type of contract.
And that's under the personal services?
Yes, it's under the
Okay.
personal services.
The Carver Bridge,
Mhm.
we
I
use
remember
that,
one, yep.
we use that process because we hired
Clackamas County.
through Clackamas County, and our
Exactly.
agreement was with Clackamas County.
Didn't we use the same with Adam and the power generator?
It wasn't with another public agency.
Commissioner Sterling, that was a different process. It was a CMGC process.
That's right, that's right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Sorry, you can go on.
Can I interrupt you?
Okay.
Also, I'd like to point out, under the estimated cost and cost savings, even though it's, we haven't done the work, I could see where by using the same engineer, we're gonna save dollars, I don't know, 10, 15, 20%. That really is a guess, to be honest with you. But I do want to point out that because it's inclusive of all the work, a lot of this portion of the work is going to be reimbursable based on what we're finding. So I believe a lot of these engineering fees will be paid by ODOT. I still want to pay fair, I don't care if it's ODOT or CRW does, we're all taxpayers. I believe this is relatively fair. I think when ODOT does see these numbers, because ODOT has not seen this yet, I still have to take this to them and show it to them that this is what we want to do. This is in the format that ODOT allows, and these are the rates they allow within their existing contract with ODOT. So with the proper scope of work, with our authorization that we will contract with this firm, it should be a go. It should be a project that should proceed.
I'm sorry, Mike?
I move that the board approve an exemption to Clackamas River Water Local Contract Review Board for competitive sealed proposals above $150,000 for the purpose of entering into a professional service agreement for engineering design services with OBEC Consulting Engineers Incorporated relating to the JTA Sunrise Clackamas River Water Line Relocation Project.
And then you have to
No.
keep,
We do these separately?
The other one's out front. It's of course my paperwork.
oh, okay.
Okay, a second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Commissioner Hall?
Hi, yeah. How does the contingency process work in this? Are you confident that this number is so high that as it comes down to the reimbursables, you don't have to worry about it?
Yes,
Okay,
very
but-
confident.
So, but normally you would build in a contingency of I don't know.
Two pieces of contingency already built into this.
Aw.
One is the engineer looks at the numbers, and I know for a fact that as a past consultant, they have those kind of numbers built in. I also have done contingencies when I'm working with them on the project construction costs. So I'm building in a 15% contingency on a construction cost. So when the total project, engineering and construction fees come together, there is contingency built into that. Now, ODOT accepts a certain percentage of that, and that's pretty common.
So you're comfortable in this situation that that contingency is, which you would built in if it wasn't already built in, is taken care of?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You've been very busy this past couple months. George, can you call the vote, please?
Commissioner Cardwell?
Yes.
Commissioner Holloway?
Yes.
Commissioner Kemper? Yes. Commissioner Sterling?
Yes.
Commissioner Kehoe?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Mike?
Now, during the local contract review board.
Actually, we still need to stay in the contract. That was
The
an
next
error.
one also?
That's all contracted.
Okay. Then I move the board approve resolution 15-2012, authorizing a professional services agreement for the relocation of water facilities, engineering design services with OPEC Consulting Engineers Incorporated for the amount not to exceed $182,700 in a form approved by district council and authorized the general manager to sign the agreement. Effective date, May 10th, 2012.
Second.
Thank you for having the general manager sign it. That saves me a trip.
As this project comes together, and as it's reimbursable, non-reimbursable, and how the fees come out, I'll be bringing back to you a summary sheet to show you what was proposed and where we're heading, keep you informed of our costs and the budget issues as it is, the CIPs. I do estimate the work, actual construction, probably be a little over $1 million for all the components of that. I'm not sure how much is our responsibility, but probably a good 30%, 40%.
As we go forward and develop our infrastructure and improve it, have you looked at some of the new technology that's available for expandable joints and fittings?
For earthquake type issues,
Yes, or just settling and that sort of stuff, some of the, go ahead.
yes. We do read about new technology. We do take a look at earthquake issues. Most in-ground situation restraint that we use today, take that into account. So there's nothing really special about it. It's pretty much standard procedure now in the industry to do a lot of that.
I have a question for you. You said the total project cost was going to be around $1 million.
Construction costs.
Construction cost, but we were going to be responsible for 30 to 40%.
Yeah, and that's a very
So,
pie in the sky number right now.
yeah. Meaning you're gonna come back again for a higher amount with another contractor?
Well, let's ask the question. If the budget for the JTA is approved, and keep in mind this construction is not going to happen until 2013 fiscal year, we're a year out. We will ask, yes, we will probably say in this
Because I'm
Carter Bridge,
wondering-
we give acknowledgement of the contract amount that's bid through ODOT, that you would have to
But
authorize
I'm
that
wondering
work.
if this is included in that construction amount, the 30 to 40%? Or
Say
if
that
this is
again?
just the design portions
This is-
outside of the construction
Yes,
amount?
this is strictly design,
So,
nothing about
not the
construction.
300,000 or 400,000?
That's next year.
Okay, thank you.
And that will
was
be
what I was-
determined after it's actually bid. What I will do though, as I work through the numbers, I'll be bringing you my estimates, what I think it's gonna cost, like I have on other projects. The generator, the Carter Bridge, others, we brought you estimates of cost.
Thank you.
And,
Just so I had an understanding with the budget process, how much that monetary amount should look like. Thank you.
So, yeah, have you included an amount, we're authorizing this now, for the current fiscal year. Have you included in a construction amount or any other aspect of this in your request for the upcoming budget? I don't have
Yes.
that document with me.
If you'll remember the JTA discussion in the Mayfield Road, where I overestimated by a large amount
Mhm.
for this year, that is the number we're talking about, that 698,000, I believe it was.
Mhm.
I believe it will be lower than that by true cost. But again, that is not going to be this year because of the timing of the project. It will be 2013.
Right. Fiscal 13,
Yes.
or calendar.
13, 14.
Okay.
I'm
So
sorry.
fiscal,
We're doing 12, 13
fiscal
now.
14, right, okay.
Fiscal 14.
Okay. And I would just say, thank you so much for the very carefully prepared presentation, so that we know just what we're voting.
All right.
Commissioner Kemper?
And I'm sure this is quite clear to everybody here, that this is not a luxury item. It's not something we have any control over, it has to be done. It's not bleeding money.
Adora, can you call a vote, please?
Commissioner Claremont?
Yes.
Commissioner Holloway?
Yes.
Commissioner Kemper?
Yes.
Commissioner Sterling?
Yes.
Commissioner Kehoe?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. We'll get started quicker.
That's part of your Sunrise JTA and Mather Road transmission?
Yes.
698,000?
Yes, that's the
It's
project.
there in the budget, yeah.
Okay. Agenda item number 9. I can make this one fairly quick.
Madam Chair.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I need to convene the.
Oh.
Yeah. Sorry, so I move to adjourn the local contract review board and reconvene the regular meeting.
Next item, agenda item 9, is the donation of assets and easement. What I'm requesting tonight is to consider donation of assets consisting of a relocated CRW 24-inch water line and acceptance of a permanent easement right-of-way of entry to that water line. Costco Corporation here in Clackamas wish to build a fuel filling station on their east end of their property. Many years ago, we had a 24-inch transmission main going up through the wetlands up through there. Costco bought the property and we have an easement, permanent easement across that easterly end, as you can see on Exhibit A in the map. We considered quite a few different options. Could we move their gas station someplace else, please, and that sort of thing. But it comes down to, it is their property. We could accommodate them. It does not affect the hydraulics. I mean, a couple of dams does not cause us heartache over that. To tell you the truth, Costco was a pleasure to work with. Very professional, very timely. Their engineers struggled a little bit on what we wanted. We worked through that. And we ended up with a well-built line. It's in place, operational now, and basically we have a bill of sale and donation. And I think the value is, yeah, $43,120. And also the water line easement, which is fairly expensive because the corporate office insisted that the whole property in Exhibit A be written up as boundary, complete. And then they came back through with the other exhibits, which was Exhibit B for the line itself, which Exhibit C shows the routing. And then you page back to Exhibit D. It shows a description of the piece that we relinquished. We no longer needed that portion of that easement. And we also insisted that they remove the 24-inch. I did not want somebody coming back in the future thinking that we had a 24-inch water line right there under a gas station. So they removed it in its entirety. We now have a completed water line out and around it, and we're proceeding to build a gas station.
Commissioner Carpel?
I move the Board of Commissioners accept the donation of assets and permanent easement documentation as presented for the Clackamas Costco store with an acceptance date of May 10, 2012, and authorize General Manager to sign the water line.
You second it?
Any discussion? Commissioner Sterling?
So this evening, Bob, we passed some new fees. So
Yes.
we missed that, didn't we? We didn't get any of it from Costco?
Oh, no, Costco, I mentioned before, what we did was an estimate of the work, and we collect a 4.6% of the cost as fees. And we charge them as our inspectors go out, we do any work with them, we charge against that collected fee.
TMO?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, it is.
Okay. I didn't know whether just because we passed this evening, we missed out on a little additional revenue from Costco. Their stock is doing quite well despite the economy, so
Good for them.
why shouldn't our ratepayers benefit too?
No, they, all our private work, we've always been time and material at 4.6% of the estimated construction costs.
Oh, I didn't know that.
What we have been collecting is such as fire services. They're not as simple as they used to be. It used to be a fire hydrant and that was it. We charged a flat fee of $500.
$500, yeah.
Well, now, they're long lines, combinations of vaults, hydrant meters, FDCs, and they're becoming more complex with reviews from the fire department and Clackamas County. Everyone's different. So our staff made the request to go to time and material like we do plan review. That's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
All right, we already did the approved rate increase.
You need to vote on this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Give a motion on the floor.
Sorry.
Cardwell,
Yes.
Commissioner Holloway,
Yes.
Commissioner Kemper,
Yes.
Commissioner Sterling,
Yes.
Commissioner Kehoe,
Yes.
motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Item number 10, Commissioner items, approved rate increase. There is a request by Commissioner Holloway to put the rate increase on the agenda, which we did. We already went over it. So we're gonna move to general manager contract and performance review process. So I believe we're going to have to discuss that in executive session, just so the public knows. And what we're going to do in executive session is we're going to review the general manager's performance for his yearly performance review, and then we're also going to review his contract. And that will be brought back at the June meeting.
Have we established what forms are going to use for the evaluation? This is
Well,
what
we
this is
have
what
not.
we used last year.
Yeah, well, we approved it at the, when we did the performance review last year, I believe. We set out the process as to how we were going to do the review this year. So that's what we usually do after we come out to the public, provide to the public the results of that performance evaluation. Then we set the process for the next year. So we've already done that, which was, we were using the same form.
Use the same form as last year, that's
Absolutely.
what I was hoping.
Actually, I don't think that's quite correct. Each year, we have to adopt the evaluation criteria in public. Also,
You
I
don't
don't,
have to.
excuse me, Commissioner, may I make my statement rather than having you argue with me? That's certainly been my experience in the 5 years on the board. Second, I do not believe that the board can legally discuss a contract change. That contract has to be discussed in public.
Well, I think that the contract will be discussed in public, but it will be part of the discussion with the performance evaluation in executive session.
I do not believe that that can be done legally, Commissioner.
Dee?
I don't see any reason or any restriction why the board can't discuss, the contract, the general manager's contract in executive session. Obviously, any motion or change in executive session has to be done. Any motion or change of that contract has to be approved in public.
As I recall, previously, we were required we can review his performance. That has nothing to do with changing his contract, and I do believe that the discussion in changing his contract has to be conducted fully in public.
Well, you know what, I'm going to tend to disagree with you
Well,
in regards to
look
that.
at the
because
ORS,
it
we
is-
have council sitting here.
Yeah,
It says you can discuss, you can do a performance evaluation, and that's it.
Well, if I want to discuss the contract along with this performance evaluation, I'm going to do so.
If you want to break Oregon law,
It's
Commissioner.
not breaking Oregon law, if I'm speaking about it in regards to this performance evaluation. So you can file whatever complaint like you always do. And-
Commissioner, you are the ones who are filing complaints and lawsuits, et cetera, so give it a rest.
So, moving on, commissioner reports and reimbursement requests. Carol, I have a question for you. Tipping. It was my understanding that we're not allowed to add the tip to reimbursements.
We can,
But we
typically our
can.
policy states 15%.
Okay, perfect. I move to approve, let's see, Barbara, you just have one?
No, I have three.
I just have this one here.
Got the total amount on our sheet there.
There should be two included in the packet, and then the new one, the one for April.
Oh, no, it's here. So I move to approve commissioner reimbursements for Barbara Kemper in the amount of $520.40.
There's, you have to add that
That's
third one.
47.
But it does.
The last one needs to be added
I
to
don't
it.
have it.
This is for 3 months. This is the one for April.
Did you submit this before the meeting?
Yeah. Yeah, Carol's approved it.
Yeah, it's got her initial on the
Oh,
bottom.
no, we just don't have it.
It's on your, up there, the corner of
Oh,
your.
this one's sorry. Okay. Sorry. So what is the amount now, Barbara?
It should be $807.65 for 3 months.
You said 800.
$807.65.
Well, yeah, so I think that must be correct.
In the amount of $807.65.
Second.
George, can you call the vote, please?
Commissioner Cardinal,
Yes.
Commissioner Holloway,
No.
Commissioner Kemper,
Abstain.
Commissioner Sterling,
No.
and Commissioner Hoover.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Moving on.
Well, obviously, this presents a question for the attorney. Because we've had this issue 2 months in a row now where commissioner reimbursements have failed. So, you got it, yeah, 3 votes. Okay. That's it, we're done now.
We're done. So I move to, public comment. Warren,
I think I signed up last.
I'm calling you right now, Warren.
Oh, okay. We started researching the issue after Mr. Johnson came and made a verbal assault on a couple of commissioners and found out that he's a middleman for Johnson City, so I believe Johnson City.
Okay, I'm not gonna have you speak about other people that
Okay,
make public
Johnson City
comments. So
should
if
not
you
have a commercial
you have a
account.
public comment to
I
make
do.
about the district and not
I am,
people?
he's not in the district.
Okay, so are you done?
No,
Okay, do you have something else to say?
no, I'd like to see the IGA with Johnson City,
Okay, well, you know how to make a public request
and I'm
form.
making it right now, because I have an email account right now.
Okay, well, then you have to come in and fill it out.
So, Mr. Mitchell, are you saying that Johnson City is not in CRW territory?
And as far as I can tell, it's a city outside of the CRW district. And Johnson Noble Estate sells water to Johnson City, and CRW sells Johnson City Noble Estates water.
So what is your
Public-
complaint?
My question is, why is it a commercial account, not an IGA with a city? Sunrise has an IGA, and Milwaukee used to have one. I think they're phasing that out.
Commissioner Sterling?
I think we should probably consider Commissioner Kemper's idea that she put forth when she owned her property there on Highway 22, and that we should take and begin to consider that each one of those housing units in there needs to have its own meter.
280 units there.
280 units?
Yes.
Well, that's a pretty substantial check for our SDCs, wouldn't that be?
You are a little bit confused though about the property on Highway 212 because those were individually metered through Shadowbrook. Shadowbrook paid one bill, and then they metered the people individually. That's how that's done. There weren't individual CRW meters.
Mr. Moore, what is our regulation relating to customers who are not in our district?
In what respect?
Well, if there, and maybe Mr. George is a better person to answer the question. So far as I'm aware, we're only allowed to sell water within our district unless we make some kind of a special agreement.
That is correct.
Isn't that correct, Mr. George?
They don't have to.
General manager, Steve.
They don't have to reside within our district, if that's what your question is.
Well, I've read our regulations. What are you basing your comment on, Commissioner
The
Keevan?
fact that Bob has come before this board and you've approved it, where we've had residences that purchase water from us as individual residences, and they're not annexed within our district.
This is a city, not a resident. This is 280 citizen.
Well, if that's the case, then there must be a record of it having come before the board. So I presume, Mr. Moore, you can produce that record for us.
I will first of all answer the question. I don't know if Mr. Bishop's assertion is correct yet, and I'll answer that first. He said there's
Well, okay, so.
But if it is correct.
The time is up. So I suggest that you make a public records request.
Well, I'm doing that right now.
No, you're gonna have to
No,
make
you
a
do it in
written-
writing, there's a form for
Yeah,
it.
there's a form, we have regulations in regards to that.
Well, I'll draft it, I wanted to. Maybe you can write it. No, you can't.
Okay.
Well,
David Blair? David Blair?
I've seen Bruce Belling.
Excuse me, Commissioner, before this starts.
So, we have public comment. If you have a question for the general manager, you can ask him after the meeting.
That's very right.
Earlier, Commissioner Kemper said that error, or whatever it was in that water rate calculation, was only a gallon of milk. If you'll recall, in our rate hearing, there were two ladies here that said they were struggling to buy that gallon of milk for their children. So you're taking a gallon of milk with no children with that.
In a month. Yeah.
That's a lot of milk for kids.
Is that all?
Yes, I think you had that right hearing.
Cindy Lewis Wolfram?
Yeah, probably $300 in the milk.
Cindy Lewis, Wolfram, Care. I just wanted to say a couple things tonight. First of all, to congratulate the board for going through the rate situation so quickly and concisely. But just to really address what Mr. Blair just said about a gallon of milk. The cost increase that the rate committee brought forward is effectively $6 every billing period. And that's every 2 months. So you $3 a month. This board has taken the time to get input from the ratepayers, and they have given out documents that were quite clear as to where the rates were going. And you've done the job that the ratepayers expect you to do by approving the rate that will support the operations of this district. Thank you.
Thank you. And move to adjourn.
Right.
Yes.
Adjourn. Second.
Kids do the math.